a nearly 50,000-ton aircraft carrier sold for less than a bottle of mineral water from your local store. In 1998, the international arms market buzzed with this unbelievable rumor. Russia planned to sell its Admiral Gorshkov aircraft carrier to India for an astonishing price, just $1. At the time, many believed India had struck gold, snagging a windfall that fell from the sky. But from signing the contract to finally taking possession, the carrier dragged on for a full 15 years. By then, the Indian Navy's initial excitement had long evaporated, replaced by indescribable hardship. What was supposed to be a $1 deal ended up costing India nearly $3 billion in total expenses. Was this sheer generosity from the Russians, or was it a trap meticulously laid from the start? To understand this, we must first examine the Indian Navy's situation at the time. Back then, India's only operational aircraft carrier was the aging HMS Fireat, purchased from the UK. This vessel was simply too old, a relic from World War II, and by the 1990s, it was riddled with problems, constantly requiring drydock repairs. It was utterly incapable of projecting any meaningful naval presence. India desperately wanted to assert its influence in the Indian Ocean, but without a proper aircraft carrier, its voice lacked credibility. Just as India was grappling with this dilemma, word came from Russia that they had an aircraft carrier to offload. This vessel, the Admiral Gorshkov, was known as the Baku during the Soviet era as the last of the Kiev-class carriers. It had a full load displacement of approximately 45,000 tons, a true behemoth for the Indian Ocean at the time. However, the ship had a troubled fate. In 1994, a severe explosion in the engine room destroyed its boilers. Russia's economy was struggling at the time, lacking funds to repair this money-guzzling behemoth. They simply left it anchored, where it rusted beyond recognition over the years. By 1998, facing severe cash shortages, Russia set its sights on this derelict vessel. They approached India, which was urgently seeking to expand its navy, offering terms India couldn't refuse: the carrier for free, with a symbolic $1 payment. India was overjoyed at the news. They had been struggling to find a carrier, and Russia's offer was a godsend. Though they knew the ship was little more than a hollow shell with extensive damage, India saw this as insignificant. They reasoned that as long as they had a large platform, the rest could be repaired gradually. At the time, Indians calculated that even if the entire ship were scrapped for scrap metal, it would be worth more than $1. Russia even added a considerate condition: the ship must be repaired exclusively by Russian shipyards. India accepted this without hesitation, recognizing their own lack of such expertise. Russian experts estimated the repair costs at roughly $900 million. Though steep, India deemed it a bargain for a 40,000-ton aircraft carrier, and promptly signed the contract. After signing the contract, India eagerly awaited delivery. According to the original agreement, the ship was supposed to be repaired and handed over to India before 2008. India had even begun forming a new carrier-based aircraft squadron, ready for the aircraft carrier to take command. But little did they know, this wait would lead to major problems. As the repairs progressed on the Russian side, the pace slowed down. By 2008, when Indian inspectors visited the site, they were stunned to find the vessel virtually unchanged from years prior, still in a dilapidated state. Russian officials shrugged their shoulders and began explaining their predicament. They claimed that during the initial assessment, they hadn't realized the ship's problems were far more severe than anticipated. It wasn't just one faulty boiler; the entire propulsion system, piping, and wiring required extensive replacement. To complete the repairs properly, the original budget was woefully inadequate, demanding additional funding. India was furious. This felt like outright reneging, yet they knew they had no choice. The initial $900 million had already been sunk into the project. Abandoning it now would mean throwing that money down the drain. Moreover, India had already begun purchasing the accompanying carrier-based aircraft. Without the carrier, what would become of those planes? Just as India found itself in a difficult position, another incident further complicated matters. According to information later revealed by Indian media outlets themselves, during the period when India was renegotiating prices with Russia, an Indian naval captain named Singh was stationed in Russia as a representative to oversee repairs and negotiations. While in Russia, this captain became acquainted with a local woman, and the two developed a very close relationship. Indian military officials later suspected this woman might have connections beyond the surface, and that Captain Singh may have inadvertently disclosed India's negotiating bottom line to her. Regardless of the truth behind this allegation, The outcome was that Russia adopted an extremely hardline stance at the negotiating table. India ultimately had no choice but to grit its teeth and accept the new price, adding another $1.4 billion to the deal. Only then was the repair contract finalized, with delivery pushed back to 2013. But that wasn't the end of it. With the repair costs rising, supporting equipment had to follow suit. The Russians thoughtfully reminded India, "You can't have a carrier without aircraft, right? And what aircraft should it use?" Naturally, Russia's ready-made MiG-29Ks. India reasoned it made sense. They couldn't bring back an empty shell. So India shelled out again, purchasing over 20 MiG-29Ks for several more $100 million. By the time the carrier, renamed INS Vikramaditya, or Sun Surpasser, was finally delivered to India in 2013, the final tally had ballooned. From the initial $1, the cumulative costs of repairs, retrofits, and carrier-based aircraft had reached nearly $3 billion. After 15 years of turmoil and spending the equivalent of a new carrier, what India ultimately received was still an old vessel, left over from the Soviet era. And while the ship looked new on the outside, its foundation remained outdated, with much of its internal equipment cobbled together. India thought it could finally rest easy, but problems never ceased after the Vikramaditya returned. During sea trials in 2012, its boilers malfunctioned, preventing it from reaching full speed. In 2016, a toxic gas leak on board caused casualties. In 2019 and 2020, the ship suffered consecutive fires, one of which proved fatal for a Navy commander, who succumbed to smoke inhalation while battling the blaze. Over the years, this aircraft carrier has spent most of its time either undergoing repairs in dry docks or en route to them, leaving a paltry amount of operational time at sea. Looking back at the deal, why did Russia agree to sell the carrier for just $1? Ultimately, Russia faced severe economic hardship at the time and could no longer afford to maintain the vessel, which would have rusted away idle. Trading it for substantial repair and procurement contracts offered a lifeline for its shipyards while generating real revenue, a win-win proposition. For India, however, the eagerness to build a powerful navy and project strength in the Indian Ocean was so intense that the $1 price tag blinded them to the potential risks lurking behind the deal. India's deficiency wasn't in the funds to purchase an aircraft carrier, but in the technology to build and maintain one, in a comprehensive defense industrial base. Without these foundations, even the finest imported equipment leaves them at others' mercy. Russia capitalized precisely on this vulnerability, knowing India had no alternative but to follow its lead step by step. This episode underscores a crucial lesson: arms deals may appear as simple transactions, but they are fundamentally contests of technology and power. Those who seek to bolster their military through bargain hunting may ultimately discover they've become the biggest suckers of all.